This conference will now be recorded.
What do you say, Jim?
Yeah, it's going.
Going? Okay. Morning, everyone. We had a little technical delay, but it's Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. The Mitchell County Courthouse for Supervisor meeting. We have an agenda in front of us.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Steve has made a motion to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Jim has seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. 2, approve the minutes of the June 28th meeting. Everyone had a chance to look that over. If there's any corrections or additions to that. So we need a motion and a second for this also.
Make a motion to approve the minutes. June 28th meeting.
Mark has made a motion to approve the minutes of the June 28th meeting. I'll second. Todd has seconded. Any further discussion on this?
Roll call, Todd.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Okay. Item 3, county attorney, general discussion. Morning, Aaron.
Morning. I don't have anything specific today, although I just wanted to, I'll be quick, but I got a couple questions from people. New state laws go into effect, well, generally on July 1st, and some did. One of which was, there's a new ordinance on ATVs, and I've had more than one person ask me questions on this, so I thought I knew what it said, but I went back and looked at it a little bit. Some people were concerned by the wording of the statute that maybe it restricted use of ATVs on certain roads where it was already approved in certain counties. And I said, I don't think that was what the law was intended to do. And I went back and read it, and it's not. So, I mean, it looks like what the state law did, because not all counties allow ATVs on all their roads, right? So the state law opens up those roads. So in some counties where they don't want ATV use, they're probably going to have more than they want, right? Because the state law kind of said you can use it on these roads and so forth. One of the questions was is Mitchell County going to lose, our ATVers in Mitchell County going to lose access because of that new law? I said, no, it doesn't undo anything a county's already done. It just expands maybe what a county's done. So at least that's what I understand. And I know the sheriff's probably getting questions about it too. Maybe, maybe is that, am I right? That's my take. Yeah. Okay. That's what I meant to look back to him too, because he's up on this stuff as much as anybody. So anyway, not anything anybody needs to do. I just thought I'd point that out. I've gotten a few questions from it. Don't know if you guys are, but if you have any more questions, let me know or something. Okay.
As far as Mitchell County, nothing really changes then, does it?
Well,
Or does it?
no, not as far as you guys are concerned.
For the ATV part of it? I mean the ATV part, pretty much.
Yeah, so under our ordinance, it was 16 years of age.
Oh,
Under
okay.
state law, it's 18.
Oh, 18. Okay, so that changed. Okay.
Yeah, there are some changes like that, but
So what takes precedence, the county or the?
Well, the way I read the ordinance, for the state law, when I went back and read it, it looks like the local ordinance is no longer in effect.
Oh, okay, so it's 18.
But Aaron may have a different take on that, but that's how I read it.
it's a bit confusing. As I understand it, it definitely, the state statute definitely preempts county.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, okay, if there are areas where, certain areas maybe where the state statute doesn't speak about, but the county statute does. Is the county statute still in effect? And I think, kind of like they read that ordinance, it almost like the county ordinance is repealed, state ordinance is put in place. Generally, the state ordinance is broader. There are some differences like ages and age and stuff like that. The county has certain discretion also to certain hours of use on certain roads. I've printed a bunch of stuff out on it. So I think on certain things, a county can pass an ordinance regulating certain things, but it would probably have to be repassed. I'm not sure the ordinance in effect now, is really in effect, but
So from a practical standpoint, from my office, can be complaint driven.
Okay.
Right? not gonna be chasing ATVs into the road ditch to
Yep.
see if somebody's somebody is 16 or 17 years old.
Okay,
Could be complaint driven.
okay,
The DNR's washed their hands of it because there's no money for them on the enforcement side. And so if that's the view that they're gonna take from the state agency and enacting this and pushing it onto the sheriff's offices, I'll enforce it how I see fit. And it'll be complaint driven.
complaint driven. which is
Yes.
Fine, yeah,
I've got bigger fish to fry, quite
Okay.
frankly.
correct.
Than somebody riding an ATV on a gravel road. But we will handle it if we get a complaint. There's no doubt about that.
It hasn't been a problem.
That's not been a problem.
No.
Oh, that I'm aware of.
No, we haven't had any problem. Now, that isn't a green light for everybody to just go ride your ATV. However, that's my position on it.
So is it safe to say that the county's ordinance is done and we're just under the state ordinance now? If people ask.
I think so. I've asked a question of some others, and I got kind of differing opinions. And I think part of that is because the statute is a little bit confusingly worded, in my opinion. Maybe it's just because I'm not very smart. I don't know, but it's confusing. So what should be happening, I can't remember which office it is. It's not the Attorney General's office. It might, I don't think it is. Another office in Des Moines was going to look at it over the next few days and then kind of tell us all what they thought. Because it is, and I guess others must think it's a little confusing too, because you're like, well, what's this do to the rest of the ordinance that's not affected by this one?
That's going to be difficult when there's overlap between the two and, well, is it this one or is it this one?
Well,
or-
that might be why that's one reason some interpret to just say, nah, we're just wiping out the county, starting with the state. And if the county has leeway over certain things still, then they can pass the ordinance on those things. That's one interpretation. Some, as you can imagine, some counties in the state are not very happy with this. Polk County, for example, is not very happy with this. Maybe you can understand why. I mean, the thought of an ATV running down Grand Avenue, and, may not be particularly appealing, but.
Would the law allow that on Grand
I
Avenue?
don't think so. I think you read in there, there's a lot of different exceptions. No, I don't believe the law would allow that, but people in Polk County, some people in Polk County are a little concerned, right? Because it's probably gonna open up, some ATV use in certain residential neighborhoods, maybe some suburban neighborhoods, where, be careful what I say here, but maybe certain stuffy people don't like ATVs just rolling around, I don't. And it's part of the state where we're at, we're all kind of used to it, and a lot of us ride them, so. So I think, and it was advocated for by ATV groups. So be a few questions still to answer, and I'm curious about it. I've had people ask me questions, and I don't, like I said, if you guys haven't, you may, I don't know. I bring it up here this morning, people listening, that may spur more questions, that maybe we can't quite answer yet, but I'll certainly do my best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item 4, sheriff update.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Aaron was talking about, the way the law is written, there's a section in there that talks about driving to the nearest ATV park. Well, I think the nearest ATV park for us would be Waterloo. So somebody legally could jump on and ride to the nearest ATV park. I don't know that that was the intent of the law, but that's kind of how it's written. And so I need some, if we're going to write citations, we need to know that they're actually violating the law. And then Aaron's going to have to make a decision whether he's going to prosecute the case or not. And if it's very cloudy like it is now, it may be very difficult to even convict someone. And I don't know that we need to go down that road until we have clarity in the law. So not much is going to change in our end. Secondly, I want to bring you up to speed on a situation that we've been dealing with since February of 22 with state court administration and the clerk of court. In late 21, they changed, state government changed how counties are reimbursed for their room and board and percentage that their new collection agency now takes in order to collect fees from those people that owe money. The bottom line is, since that went into effect, we are not getting back the correct amount of money from the state on our room and board. This file is full of correspondence with Steve Hand, who's court administration, Shannon, the treasurer's office, she's been involved in this, Aaron's office, my office, trying to get this resolved. And nobody that is in charge of the funding and collection is willing to say, yeah, there's a problem. They're just going to push it off on the legislatures that passed this law. So at some point there'll be an audit, and it'll show that the figures aren't accurate. And I'm not going to be left holding the bag for that, because it's not our problem. It's the state's problem. When we have our audit, when our auditor comes for the county, we're going to update her on the situation. I think there needs to be a state audit. Aaron's on it now. I'll be patient. He's going to try and resolve it without that. We're holding a check from the state now. It's like $600 we've had for several months, because it's not right. And if we cash that check, I think we accept their figures, and they're going to say, you cash the check, that's a notice of acceptance in our figures, and so too bad for Mitchell County. So we're sitting on that check. Not every check has been wrong, but a lot of them have been. We've tried to resolve it through Shannon's office. She's on board with us. She says the figures aren't right either. And we have those letters and correspondence to prove that. So I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know how long it's going to take. But when there's an audit and it doesn't show that the numbers are correct, that's why. And I'd like to resolve it before we get to that.
Here's what I think we'll do. I've been corresponding with the sheriff's office, and I realize what he's saying. It would be similar to attorney's trust accounts are regulated, right? And we get audited so often, it would be similar to if there was something off on that. It causes a big headache. Even if you don't get in any trouble, you might get in trouble. But I mean, if you're like stealing money, but assuming you're not, it's just a clerical error. It's just more of an fees than anything. I have, well, Mark Walk was a former county attorney. I hate to always, I hate to rely on him, but once in a while I have questions, I go to Mark Walk. I said, well, you ever dealt with this? He really had. So, but we did talk about the state audit. That's something that we'll do if we have to. I have been maybe a little reticent to do that. Of course, what I'm saying now is going out publicly, so I guess I don't really care who hears. I just want to be careful. It always seemed to me that when you ask for a state audit, you're kind of accusing somebody of wrongdoing, whether you really are or not. It kind of appears that you are. And I don't really want to accuse, because it maybe is, and this is another thing. Becky from my office is going to work with like Emily from his office. I've already I don't know if anybody knows this yet, but Becky does. To make sure I understand exactly what's going on before I ask. If I have to answer that audit, I will. I would rather get some answers from court people before I do that. Now, they might not give me any more answers than they're giving the sheriff, and they probably won't. But I felt like I'd at least try.
And I think Aaron's right. Let's try everything we can before we have to take that next step. So our position isn't somebody's doing something criminal, but they were given this program, and in practical matters, it doesn't seem to work. And we're not the only county. There are other counties. And so when Emily was at civil school back in April, she talked to some people down there about this, and the attorney that was doing the training that day. And his suggestion was given the county attorney, but there has to be an audit at some point. So it's not that we feel somebody in Mason or Des Moines or whatever is doing something criminally wrong, but their program isn't correct. And so that our numbers don't look good. They're not. And so how it was handled in the past is somebody, John Doe, would pay for 3 nights room and board. We would get a check then at some point from court administration, John Doe's room and board. We could credit him that. Okay, so then he's paid his obligation to Mitchell County. We now just get a bulk lump check. We have no idea where those fees can be applied. And so if we misapply them and somebody comes in and says, well, I've already paid my fees, maybe they have, we didn't apply them correctly. We have no way of knowing who to apply that room and board fee to. We just have a check, minus the fees that the collection agency takes for doing this work for the state. So that's where it's at. I'm patient, have been since February, and we'll get an audit soon. And so that'll be brought up to the auditor and act on her advice at that point in county attorney's office. So
Would it be an audit for Metro County only to them, or would it be other counties involved with the audit?
I don't think we would include any other county.
It'd just be in Metro County.
It'd be our business, and then if it expands, that would be our.
I think so.
Okay.
Now, it might, I guess, just thought, you guys have thoughts, sheriff has thoughts. Other county attorneys that are having similar issues, you know, I could get their thoughts and say, hey, y'all want to join in on something. But every issue might be just a little bit different.
It'd be a little different. I could share with Aaron a couple of phone calls I've received from bordering counties. But I want to take care of my issue. Sure.
Is it becoming, money's money, and so is it getting to be a lot of money that's not coming to you?
I think we're at 6,000.
Yeah.
And if it's, that's just 1 year. So if you don't do anything in 5 years for 10, yeah, so it isn't about the money for me. Yeah, the county is owed that money, but the impression that the figures aren't right is what bothers me, and it's not our fault. So we just need to try and get it resolved. And you guys need to know that that's been going on. And Shannon's, if you see Shannon, you can ask her about it. She's been working with us from the beginning on this. It's just to a point now where we need to involve the county attorney's office more and try and get some answers. That's all I have. Thank you.
We do have people at the state auditor's office we've worked with before, not on an issue like this. I don't think I've dealt with this. I don't think our office has dealt with an issue like this before. The state auditors who would do a state audit, I could get somebody down there to say, what the hell is going on? Without having to, and maybe I'm a little mixed up. Maybe a state audit doesn't carry that kind of connotation. I think it does. I just had involvement with other counties where it seems to unleash a whole hellfire for audit stuff. If I have to go that route, I'll do it. But if I can get some answers, get it straightened out with that. But I know what the sheriff's saying. Sheriff's exactly right. He's like, the longer this goes on, he doesn't want to have to spend 4 or 5 days trying to explain to somebody what's going on. I get that. Try to get it figured out.
Okay,
Good, thank you.
thank you. Item 5, department discussion. I don't know if there's anybody here pertaining to that? Hearing none, seeing none. Oh,
I didn't hear you. What was it?
department head discussion.
Oh.
Okay, item 6, county engineer update.
I'm here.
You're here?
Yep. Not a whole lot to discuss. I think Wix is going to be trying to pave sometime this week in Totterville. I suppose that's weather dependent and what we get for storms, but the base has been in and they've been out surveying and set string line here last week, so that's coming up soon. Setting a pre-construction meeting, I think, for Kirkwood here sometime this weekend. I think maybe Thursday, so we'll be getting the ball rolling on that project too. Other than that, I know that the preliminary plans have been turned in for the bridge on 105 at least, so we can get that going. We've got some preliminary things to get approved yet, and gotta get a geotechnical engineer hired for some boring so we know where rock and stuff is. Just got some quotes early this morning, so I'll try to bring that stuff next week as well. So that project's moving ahead too. And I did jump in here when you guys were talking about the ATV bill. There's a lot of confusing language in it right now. So I guess for now we'll just let the county attorney kind of look into it a little bit. I read it. Like I said, there's some confusing things when it relates back to whether we have an existing ordinance or not that can stand. There's some things that says you can't prohibit, but then a few paragraphs later it says you can if you've already adopted something prior to January 1st. So we'll just see how that goes. We'll need to review it a little bit closer. So other than that, that's all I've got for you this morning.
Steve has a question.
Rich,
Yeah.
call this morning from a local farm family. Apparently our weed commissioner stopped into their yard the other day and indicated to them they had poisonous weeds in their ditch and in their grove, and he didn't leave any other information to that. Do you have any idea what this weed is? Because they're totally confused. They're asking me questions and I'm up in the air on this. I have no
Okay.
clue.
I'll check with him. I talked to him last week a little bit, and I don't know if there's some sumac or something that's on the list that might need to be eradicated, but we can talk to him, find out what exactly it is.
All right, that sounds good, because they'd like to know.
Why don't you let me know who that family is too, after the meeting or whatever. Give me a text or whatever, or email.
I'll call you.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you, Rich.
Yep.
I had one, Rich. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Timber north of 490th, that culvert that goes angle under the road.
Okay.
We looked at it a while ago. It's washing the north slope of the ditch. Have you looked at that?
Timber north of 490th. I don't recall whether I have.
Okay, he put a driveway culvert in and he was real happy with that, but he's wondering about that one that runs at an angle.
I'll try to get a look at it this week, Mark. If I haven't, I'll have to go out there and look at it to see if I've seen it already. North 490th on Timber. I'll take a look at it this week, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Rich? Okay, very nice. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
So we're gonna have to skip over 7. So have to go up to 9. Discussion action on infill lot application.
We have one application that the Mitchell County Economic Development approved the other night. It's for 810 Main Street in Osage. $10,000 for the.
Business.
810 Main Street is the home next to City Hall.
Oh, it is.
Still our builders and mayors.
Okay. Okay, I guess we, that meets all the qualifications of your board, so I guess we need a motion and a second to approve this one.
Move to approve the infill water application we just reviewed.
Jim moved to approve it. You have a second? Mark seconded it. Any further discussion on this?
Roll call, Jim,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Todd.
Aye.
Okay,
That must be on all of them, isn't it? Oh, 10 of them probably, is it?
That's a 10th one, correct. There's about $7,700 left in the budget, or in the
7,700 left. You guys got a few minutes, a couple minutes before 9. Maybe we should go back to item 7 then. Really, Rachel?
8:59,
8:59.
9 o'clock.
It's got to be 9 o'clock. Well, can't really move on.
You can, it's
I
not-
can now? Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Okay. 9 o'clock a.m. We're gonna open a public hearing for BringNet LLC Master Matrix. There been any oral or written comments received concerning this?
I have
You have something?
comments.
Yep.
Do you want to just go through if
Oh.
anyone here received
okay.
any
Forward
call?
in the-
And then we'll-
I had a phone call, probably better than a month ago in regards to it. Individual was concerned.
I had none.
I had one phone call about concern.
And I had an email on concern. Just lately, so.
No.
You had nothing? Okay. Now, we go to the public, correct?
I just have a short statement.
Okay.
This is the spot I'm
That'll
supposed
work.
to
Yeah.
sit. My name is Penny Morse. I grew up on a farm just east of town. We raised pigs, chickens, and dairy cows. My father rotated his crops. He was a good steward for the land, and he taught me the value of hard work, especially on a dairy farm. One of the first things that I noticed when I moved back to Mitchell County 15 years ago to care for my mother was the change in farming practices, especially for animals. I saw the large confinement buildings all over the county. Neighbors would tell me that how horrible the smell was, and many upper rivers and streams are on the impaired water list. I spent several weeks after I moved back at the courthouse examining all the CAFO applications and the manure management plans that accompanied them. I used a plat map to mark where all the manure was going and noted sometimes one field would be used in 2 or 3 different manure management plans, resulting in over-application of manure. I started objecting to all the new applications that came before the Board of Supervisors. I studied the matrix scoring system that is supposed to give you some input into the plans. What I've learned is that it's okay to have one field and several plans. No one checks to see if there is over-application of manure. Each plan has to have enough acreage for that plan. The matrix has to be approved if it meets the 50% score considered passing by the DNR. And when I was a teacher, 50% was failing. I'm not here to protest the application before you. It meets the matrix requirement and it will more than likely be approved. I'm here to ask you to consider passing a resolution, not today, for a moratorium on new and expanding CAFOs, calling on the legislature to, and I quote, part of a resolution passed in Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, formally request that the IDNR be directed to suspend any issuance of any additional CAFO construction permits until such time as corrective new legislation regarding the master matrix can be adopted. I'm going to leave with you. I'll leave it with Rachel and she can distribute to do. This is a map of impaired waterways in Mitchell County, current map. And then my printer was running out of ink. This is a map, and I think you can get this in the DNR of all the confinement operations that have to be permitted. in Mitchell County. You know, I used to have a big map, but when I got taking care of my mom, I really didn't keep it updated. And I've got samples, I'm gonna leave these with Rachel. Here's some samples of resolutions that have been passed in other counties. You know, I'm just gonna leave these with Rachel. I'm not gonna go through these today. I'll leave this information with Rachel and you can get it from her. In fact, Mitchell County Board of Supervisors did write a letter in 2017 asking for the master matrix to be revised. When the DNR Oversight Panel met in 2017, however, no significant changes were made to the matrix. I'm asking you today to form a subcommittee to look into ways other counties are addressing the problems caused in their counties by CAFOs. It is the board's responsibility to protect all citizens of the county. Joining other counties and calling for a moratorium on new CAFOs until there are sufficient regulations to protect our air and water would be a first step. I'll leave this. Here's my comments.
Okay.
And I'll leave the information with Rachel, and, you know, I'm not contesting the application today. I'm just saying we need to look at what's happening to our water quality.
Jenny, this is something I would like to discuss more in depth with you sometime, brother, but not at this,
Right.
not at this time, because this is dealing with the application that we've got. But as an individual, as a resident of Mitchell County, you have concerns in regards to this. And if this is something that you want to do, I'd like to see you get on the agenda so that you can actually have the discussion with the board, if it's what you want to.
Yeah, and I have a boatload of information.
Yeah, if we were to go this route though, it's also, to me, it's going to be a vote of the people in order to, if we want to go this direction, because
Right.
this is an industry within Mitchell County, and it's pretty difficult for these 5 people just to say, we're going to stop this type of industry within the county. So
We wouldn't stop it, it's here, but it would be
any
maybe pausing
future
it.
though, so anyway, we might want to have you on the agenda if you want to do that and we can discuss it more in detail.
I would gladly do that.
Thank you.
No.
Does anybody else have any comments concerning this?
On the roadway, safety of the road coming where the site will interject with Walnut Avenue, has that been investigated? I'm assuming there's a road driveway permit that's already in place for this. Has it been approved? I feel there's a concern of site distance to the north. If the traffic from the site turns to the north and the speed trying to pull up a hill, the timing between turning north and southbound traffic you could have some potential risks there. I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And also from the south, there's a risk because you're coming around a curve that's limited sight distance until you get up around a curve and up the hill to see where that is. Plus there's a building site prior to that to be able to see any traffic coming out of your site, where I'm assuming that the road from the site will be coming to Walmart, because there's a path of unplanted crop in there, which I'm only assuming will be the place that will be placed.
Is there an existing driveway there now we're going to be using?
Yeah.
There is.
No, there's the driveway that's there sits north of where the driveway looks to me like it's proposed to go. I'm only visualing what I see from like resident that was within 3/4 of a mile of this proposed site.
I don't know if the engineer's received an application for a driveway or not, and maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I don't know the location of the driveway, but when he looks at it, he'll have to go by the standards that we've been using for driveways. But we certainly will look into that, yes.
I have not seen a permit that I know of in my office yet for this. This is the first I've heard of it, so.
And is that, they're not gonna use an existing driveway, or
There is a driveway.
there is a driveway there, so you're using an existing driveway?
It doesn't line up with the path by 40 feet.
40 feet.
It's offset, so we could use that driveway. I'd like to shift it a little bit, but there's a driveway that's close enough that
You could use it.
it's fine with me.
It was my father's old driveway, and I can attest that that driveway was hardly ever, if used, because we always used the driveway by our lane or by the farm. So, I mean, it wasn't a very used driveway. I'm not saying that that makes a difference, but, I mean, and we live like further down, and that sometimes traffic can be so heavy. Like, I mean, you really have to watch, because it's a very busy road, and
Yes, it is, yes, yeah. So. Okay. I guess that'll be looked into or figured out, or just the existing driveway, whichever's probably the same.
The existing driveway is further up the hill, which will actually create larger, a quicker concern
Okay.
from northbound traffic.
I don't know how existing driveways work. I mean, if they're there, right? And
Yeah, and pretty much if it's there, it's grandfathered in. I don't know if it depends on probably the volume of traffic that comes out. That's something engineers gonna have to look at, yes.
Okay.
I can't speak for him because
Yeah.
that's his job.
Correct, yeah.
You do a traffic count study on something like that prior to approval?
It's usually just based on the site distance, is what we've done in the past. If there's adequate site distance for traffic going in and out is how it's usually approved or not. I don't remember what that site distance is exactly. I used to, but I don't remember now.
We'll review that once I get the permit. We'll review what site distances are. Full-blown traffic studies usually aren't done on driveways per se, but we'll review it for adequate site distance, and there may have to be additional signage for advanced warning. I know we have some of that around the county, so we'll just have to evaluate that once we get it.
Okay.
Answer your question somewhat.
Have any more comments pertaining to this?
Here's the property that this will be placed on. Is it a 200-acre farm?
Jim did the,
I don't know the acreage of the plot that we were out there.
So the size of the facility is a certain size that farm will be able to handle the effluent from that site? Is that correct?
It's 2,999.2 animal units is what it's considered as far as when you do the matrix. And from what I reviewed, the manure management plan is adequate for the amount of manure that's going to produce. They have plenty of adequate land for that. Now,
Is that land on that particular site?
I don't know the answer.
If that is not on that particular site and they don't have the ability to go across the fence for it, that will increase the amount of traffic that's going to come back to your road if they are forced to haul that manure out of that site. So you need to understand that consideration also when you are reviewing this.
Okay.
If that facility produces, how many million gallons of manure will that produce, Mr. Gaines?
6.9 million gallons a year.
6.9 million gallons a year. And what's the application rate that you'll apply this at?
Yeah, the numbers, right?
The rate is just shy of between 11,000 and 13,000 gallons per acre is what is allowed. It probably won't go that high. And that depends on crop rotation. Depends on the yields they've used.
So if you feel it's 10,000 gallons per acre would be a number, and if you produce 6.9 million, that takes 698 acres to apply that.
There's nearly 1,500 acres in the plant.
Okay. So does that mean that you'll haul manure from that site down that driveway and enter Walnut Avenue with an extensive amount of traffic on top of just the normal day traffic that goes in and out of it?
We'll do what we have to do to apply the manure safely and legally.
So you guys are hearing that is a potential, that there could be 5 million gallons of manure have to travel down the driveway and down Walnut Avenue to another site. You understand that potential?
And I don't know how to legally prohibit the use of public roads in a legal fashion. That's all I guess the only way I can say that. If people are using the roads legally, it's really difficult for us to restrict them from doing that.
Public safety is the only thing you need to be requiring yourselves.
Public
Maybe
safety,
put a stop sign there, a turn lane on it.
public safety, and as far as weight limits, that type of thing. I mean, you can't destroy the road, but
There may be trucks entering the roadway signs put on the hard surface. But again, it's the legal use of that road. But there's no difference between that road and a gravel road as far as public usage. Right?
legal use of the roads is legal use of the roads.
It's, whether it's on a gravel road or a hard surface road, it's still public use. Or whether it's a quarry, like Dave, I mean, the road is for public use.
East of Osage, close to New Haven, I watch them every year, about 48 hours, they're running them from gravel road. And I haven't seen an accident or, I mean, everything's lit up like a Christmas tree. I think they do a decent job of the side of the road, and I mean, they're in and then they're out. It's 24 to 48 hours, they're going by halfway.
Is that at the bottom of the hill?
Correct, it's down in the bottom of the zone. So. And I see it year after year, and I never. Now, I think they do a good job.
Jim, I have a question. Do you apply with hose?
Yes.
So it is possible you probably will be using the hose. Maybe in the future, if you were going across the pavement, you would maybe use a hose under the pavement rather than.
That is what we plan to do.
Okay.
And we've been able to use the county right of ways to go along the edge of the road. So we don't think that this is going to be an issue.
And again, with signage on the road on the hard surface, that would alert traffic, possibly semis or anything going in or out of operation. So, I mean, it's the legal use of the road.
Any more discussion on this? Any more comments from anybody here? Hearing none, I guess we'll close the public hearing at 9:16 a.m. Item 8, discussion and action on Ringneck LLC master matrix. So we need like a motion and a second.
I'd like to just explain what I did a little bit. So,
Okay.
yeah, I was the one that did the master matrix, and when we do the master matrix, we're not allowed to, if the applicant also does the master matrix, and we are not allowed to score an item that the applicant did not score. So I can't award points as a bonus, so to speak. If they didn't award points for that line item, I'm not allowed to do it. Also, I'm not allowed to award more points than what the applicant awarded. So I'm basically checking to make sure that they did what they're supposed to be doing. I didn't base my numbers on the applicants. I did the master matrix, looked up the information, did it. The DNR has an AFO siting map, which lists the karst, the wells, the surface water, high quality waters. There's a number of things that come into play with this. I used all that information and I scored the same as what the applicant did. We both scored at 490 as far as the major score, 490. Minimum is 440. So the applicant and myself both scored above what the requirement is. A couple other things when the DNR is out there, we've discussed some things, and one had to do with the building. It's going to be positively ventilated, meaning it does not pull the air out of the building. It actually pushes the air through the building and then filters on the other side. It's supposed to be better as far as not so much stink. Supposed to improve that significantly. As I said, monitored the manure plan. DNR did not have any problem with the manure plan. State that out there. The owner owns or rents all the ground where the manure is going to be placed, so that's a significant requirement also. Long story short, there was nothing that says that the matrix scored, and it's good. So I would recommend that we do it simply because the numbers are where they're supposed to be.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Jeff made a motion. I'll second it. Steve will second it. Any further discussion on this?
Roll call, Todd,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Approved. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Rachel will send in stuff digitally to the DNR, and then the hard copies will go to the DNR also. Is there a waiting period? You have 2 days to wait?
We wait through tomorrow at closing for any additional comments that were received and can send comments in.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Appreciate it. I guess we're moving back to item 10. Discussion and possible action on infill lot program.
So I added this because last week you guys were talking about potentially extending going on, so I just put it on the agenda.
Talked with her also, I mentioned about taking a maybe application by application from now on. But we had a little discussion that she said may be easier if we would put, say, 30, 40,000 into
Like for the budget, making sure we have money in there. If you guys decide you just want to put in like 50,000, I'm just using that as an example. And then you, like you said, just do application by application. But at least that money is in the budget, so if you approve it, otherwise, right now you can't do anything because we have to have a budget amendment. There'd be money.
I looked at our commitments for local option sales tax and added them up, subtracted them for what we're getting, and we have the money to do that.
Right. We just have to put it in the budget, is all. Like, the money's there, it's just.
Question concerning this, I don't know if we has the answer right now, but okay, like say a house here in Osage, a $10,000 application. What's the return for Mitchell County on that? Because I mean, Osage has a tax abatement program. Plus, I believe the county only gets 15% of the town houses, correct? The rate of return is not good for the county, I don't know if anybody's ever looked at it that way. You know what I mean? You got $5,000 worth of property tax. I don't know what the abatement is for 5 years, but then if you're after that, if you're only getting 15%, that's not a very good rate of return for the county part. I mean, for the city, it's a good, but it's a county, so the incorporated cities are. I just thought that.
But we are looking for housing. I think we've talked about that for a long time, and that's for the county.
Yeah.
The whole county.
Right, correct. Yeah, but I just
Cities
looked at
and rural. So I think there's no doubt getting rid of blighted houses and putting a house up. I think that's what the whole county's been looking for and asking for.
as far as rate of return, though, the rural houses would return to the county more so than the incorporated cities because they already have a program in place.
But if there's nobody living in the derelict and blighted house, if we can get a new house, somebody moves in and it's a chance.
Oh,
Absolutely. It's a gamble. But
It's just they have to
we get a
program.
family that moves to town and takes our jobs and puts the kids go to our schools. I think we've done our job.
Yep, well, I'm just making the comment that, everybody's looked at the county's rate of return on something like that. So I point that out.
It's, the program's successful because we've had all the applications in 1 year, whereas given some things relevant to it.
What's the county's goal for a rate on return if you're concerned about that?
Well, I mean, it's taxpayers' money, and if you're using local option sales tax, it's supposed to be something to benefit everybody in the county, not just, some, since that's the money that it's being used for, I'm just pointing that out. I'm just.
No different than a road that you use a local option sales tax to build, and I don't drive down it.
Well,
You drive down it, but I don't drive down it, so you get the benefit and I don't. So what's the difference?
but you have the option to drive it down it.
I have a comment with Mitchell County having some bridges that are in need. Rich, are you still out there? Probably not.
Yeah, still on.
Okay, we have some bridges that, local option sales tax is for a public purpose. That's the whole idea, but it is for a public purpose. Now, we have the bridge on 105 that is needing repair, and we're going to have a bill there. We have 2 bridges there on Indigo north of Mitchell that we've been getting comments on for the last few years. We have a bridge on Echo between 370th and 360th that's pretty tough. You know that one, Rich, by the Renaissance. We have one on 385th that's near Primrose, that's on a gravel. That's not giving us any headaches yet, but it's going to. And that is on a wide road. On Ocean and 395th, and these are bridges that I just kind of in my mind been thinking about. That is a concrete box. It's about ready to fold in. That's on Ocean and 395th. It's in dire need of being replaced. And then we have our big bridge on T38 that's a concern here in the down the road. If local option sales tax is for a public purpose, our bridges are probably more of a public purpose than somebody's private house.
I have a comment too. I would assume that the county supervisors put this plan in place in order to promote development of these houses or these lots with bad houses on them. And that would be your incentive. You would be getting tax monies on a new home. That's an investment in the county. I think it's needed, but if the supervisors choose not to do that, you guys can make that. Argue whether it's important or not, ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned. All of these needs are important. Bridges are important. Sewer and water is important. Years and decades of neglect of these things is what's caused the problem. You need to budget for what you need to do every year. I think it was a good plan that you put out there. If you want to remove it, you want to remove it.
Well, it's still in place.
I know.
It hasn't run out yet.
I had a comment to
In regards to the roads and bridges, we get roughly $40,000 a month for local option sales tax. You can figure that's about $500,000 a year. Roads and bridges, that's an insignificant amount when you consider the amount that they need to do what they're doing. Local option can serve a lot of different needs throughout the county as compared to focusing. The road department would eat that amount up within one project, and you'd be waiting a number of years to build it up enough to do another project. Whereas the way it is now, we can serve a lot of different smaller needs with that money. There's other ways and other funding sources that can be used for roads and bridges, which we have not used. But this is not, local option is not a good source for roads and bridges.
But it could be used for them.
It could be used for them, yes. But you wouldn't have enough money to do hardly anything.
But it's still a use of that money with a public purpose.
That's correct.
So any comments? Yes.
Why can't you use TIP money for the road?
I'm all for that. That's the
Money's
funding,
there, it's all be used.
that's the funding source I was referring to, but it's a different topic.
You just let your
I have a
infrastructure,
comment.
you'll have no infrastructure at some point. If you don't use that TIF money that's sitting there and rebuild that infrastructure, you'll have a deficit county.
Agreed.
We have somebody online who's,
Yes, this is Sherry Penny. I have a comment on that. Just in my observation, TIF is absolutely what we should be using for roads and bridges because that is designed as infrastructure. And that is exactly what the state sees us using TIF for. And unfortunately, if we don't continue to use local option sales tax for things like housing, then you are not going to need roads and bridges because you won't have anyone coming and living in your county. So just my 2 cents as a private citizen.
We already have people living here and using the roads. And they will continue to use the roads. You must never, ever let anybody indicate that this county is going backwards, because no matter what you say, it is always going forward.
To comment on the past use of local option sales tax, I don't want it to be thought that we've just been funding housing and funding economic development, because We have been doing that, but we also plugged $500,000 into this year's budget to help with the levy rate that we charge taxpayers. We also had almost a $275,000 courthouse payment. So we've used about $750,000 of local level sales tax for things other than economic development. I don't want people to think that we're just throwing all this money at economic development, because that's not the case. Any legal purpose and the reduction of taxes is what it's designed for. And as far as we've used it adequately for both. And heavily for the budget.
So we have, yep, agree with that.
And we've been talking about roads and bridges since we've gotten on, and I can tell you right now, we're gonna be talking about more and more each year. And I just think TIF is a valuable source that we could get some of these back on their feet, so we don't go from 4 to now 6 to 8, and we have no funding. We will never get it caught up. I just think we need to really take a look at that and start getting the two on, I believe, Indigo, you know. Rich could help me out on what kind of money we're talking, but, you know, let's get 2 of them done. Let's get the Carpenter Bridge done, or 105 Bridge done. You know, we need to start finalizing a few of these projects some way, and because the future's not going to get any better for us. You know, I mean, we can't just sit here and talk about them and stretch Rich's budget and borrow ahead so far. It's going to be a domino effect. And I just feel that TIF's a very good source we could use to get something done.
I agree with you.
I want to throw one thing out about TIF. So you guys can bond for X amount of dollars, whatever you choose. But currently, within the last 2 weeks, when I checked the TIF fund balance, it's less than 200,000. So that dollar amount still has to pay for all of your bond payments. So if you go get a bond, what is our bond payment going to do? And do we have enough money in the TIF fund to pay for it? That'd be my only concern right now. In a couple of years, probably 3 years, I'd say we are going to have a substantial amount of money in TIF. I will agree with that.
Currently not. No.
At the moment, I mean, you'd have to talk to Northland or someone to, they can, I know that there's a way that they can make it the first couple of years if you don't have any payments, but then after that, your payments will be quite large, but I'd just be concerned to make sure there's enough money in there to do it.
But also, the information you send all of us, we get roughly over $4 million in TIF revenue every year. So it's not like that 200,000 is going to stay there. We're constantly getting revenue. So
yeah, and then some of the bond payments, the way they're made, they start out lower and they add X amount of dollars each year. You have to look at it just to see where.
I just don't want to make it sound like we don't have any.
No, but it's not a very large carryover number.
And the 105 Bridge, I mean, it's in the bridge fund, it's getting planned, there's money to take care of it.
Yeah.
2 road projects that are on for this year are getting done by the Farm Market Fund and the other local funds. So, I mean, we're not behind, I think.
I think Steve just mentioned a lot of things that need to be addressed.
They did the bridge inspection, if the bridges didn't pass, they would close the road, correct? I mean,
And again,
a couple roads north of Statesville got the bridges been closed for years. When are they on the plan to be fixed? I guess they're not, so I mean, that's just, I don't know.
we can and are able to manage this stuff in the future. But we went from a discussion on fill a lot to TIF.
Yep.
And it's a wonderful thing. Totally ignorant financing. No, I'm not for it. So let's get back to what we're supposed to be discussing on the fill a lot program.
Okay. So back to item 10, discussion and possible action on fill a lot program. I know that there's still some money left in the program, I guess, so it's not expired yet, so. But what's,
Let's wait, see more applications come in and address it then, or, because we can always add, amend the budget.
we have to do a budget amendment to do this, correct? It's not in the budget, right?
I mean, it will take, I don't know how fast they're getting them tore down
Not
before they turn in the bill, but it's, I'd say about a month out from whenever you would decide as far as. I can send it in, I believe the EJ is by Friday and the press news is by Wednesday. So to set a public hearing, I mean, it'd probably take about a month.
If we can, when they bring an application in, Tracy, we can just tell them that it's, it's not like they need it tomorrow. So I'm okay with that.
Presumably, if you have a contractor to tear a house down in a month.
Well, some of them that have already been approved, the houses are still standing, nothing's happened yet.
I'm okay with that.
To do a wait and see thing?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. I'll make a motion to do a wait and see and what happens. I guess it's a motion on here, so.
You don't have to, it's possible.
Okay, so possible. All right. Okay. Moving on, we got item 11, discussion and possible action on courthouse silent auction.
So I know we talked to Dave a lot, if anyone's been in our storage, we've got a lot of, I know file cabinets is probably the number one thing, but there's other items in there that we need to make room for our stuff that we physically need to store. I talked to Aaron a little bit and Shannon, we can't just do something where it's like a garage sale where you put it out because you need to give the opportunity to citizens to come and see it before, let's say, you open it up at 8 a.m. and all of us courthouse employees are here and we want to take something. So I think kind of the way we talked about it, if you pick a day, you can have it open from like 8 to 4. We thought maybe put it over in the shop that was built, just so it's not in the way here. And it's one of those where you have to have like a piece of paper, like a silent auction.
Yeah.
They write down their name, number, and
Item
what
number.
they want to pay. And then at the end of the day, once it's closed, you get all those, and then you contact whoever at the highest bid.
Now,
We
there's
figured, well,
some-
it was still nice, because I know.
on that same sheet, they would be able to put their name and their higher bid,
Correct, that you'd have multiple lines for
and that
people.
would be more fair for everybody. They would be able to see and bid
It's something,
for those interested.
while it's nice, that would be nice to do versus waiting again till the winter.
Could Dave coordinate this or how's it?
Yeah, I would, that's my opinion, but I think you might want to publish something in the paper.
Oh, yeah, you gotta be
Yeah,
out there.
all
So
that should take some place in the paper, or with one time, one date.
it's not big ticket items, is it?
I mean, I can take you in there. Most of it's like file cabinets or old desks or.
No, I do.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like it's,
If I'm wrong, then somebody can.
Okay, well, a lot of the stuff could go to the iron, but if we did that,
Yeah.
Okay.
Not saying you're gonna make a whole lot of money, but it at least frees up our space. That
Yes.
year to be able to.
Where will the money go? Then just give it to the church. Or do you?
I would say if I just receded in the miscellaneous in the 99s. For the general, but,
so you need motions for doing this?
well, if you guys could shoot out a date or something and I can get, Aaron, I'm getting something for the paper.
well,
What works for you? For a date?
yeah.
Yes, when are you not having educational?
I'd assume not to pick a Tuesday if at all possible.
Right.
But I'd say if you go out at least 2 weeks.
You should put it in the paper or
August
something.
July. Yeah, I could still get it to the paper for next week for the 12th and 13th.
Okay.
But for whatever,
So you're thinking what date? Then the 12th?
I'd say the last week of July, which would be
Okay.
the 25th or 29th.
I don't know, if public health or anybody else has any.
Yeah, and if any department wants to come in and look
Stuff.
at what's in there.
No, I mean, if they have stuff to get rid of, too, I don't know what they got in storage.
Yeah.
Well, if any departments would want something before it goes on the
Yeah,
auction, they have the chance to get in there and get it. And if they have something they want to get on that auction, they'd have the chance to put it on.
You want to send department head email to everybody, Rachel?
Yeah.
Let everybody know that?
Mhm.
Thank you.
You can have them turn the paper into like you or
What paper?
get on it.
I can if you want me to, or you guys, whoever.
Or you could just leave a sheet over there. Keith might buy an awful lot of desks and not know it.
Yeah.
Well, I would say we'd have to probably do some shifts of someone at least just standing over there in the vicinity, so. I'll just comes and takes that.
Rachel doesn't want it anymore, I don't want
I might give it to you. I know it's probably me.
You might want to check with Dave on a good day that, you know, nobody's using, nothing's in the shed and so.
So what is the quietest day around here? There is none?
Not June 30th, so that's fine.
So would a Wednesday be a good day? What do you think would be?
Yeah.
Wednesday? I move that we have our silent auction July 27th. And then Rachel put that in the paper.
Okay, Steve's made a motion to silent auction, July 27th. Mark will second that. Any further discussion on this?
Roll call, Mark,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Todd.
Aye.
All right, item 12, items of note, meetings attended.
We had an HVAC meeting the other day and discussed a number of things. I did get an email, which is probably a little more informational. Some of it. They talked about putting in ceiling cassettes. I'll just say something similar to that. And in a lot of the areas, and they be ducted and ventilated, pulling air and pulling out air. Well, some of it might have to do with fire code and possibility of having to, over there's a concrete ceiling, but then below that, there's a drop ceiling. There's 8 inches between them. You have that ceiling cassette that's in there. Well, the fire marshal might require that it gets framed around that ceiling cassette because of a fire issue. Yes. And so the consideration is in 1, 2, 3, 4 locations might end up 2 of them not having a ceiling cassette and just having louvers that pull the air back in. And the other ones would be either a wall mounted unit. And there might be some cost savings in regards for us to be doing that. So that's something that's being looked into.
If they would have had to put that framing around, they'd have had to open up the roof.
Well, they could probably do it from, from this side because it's drop ceiling, but then they'd have to go up there to
Frame it,
frame it and sheet rock it, yeah. So, trying to save the cost by all of that. So that was that. Then we had the daycare meeting again, also we had 2 of them actually. The first one, they kind of came up with 4 locations that might be considered that to make this happen. I'm not going to name anything or any one of them because that's not wrote in stone yet, but moving forward a little bit on that. The other location would require a warming kitchen and they need a playground for the site. And they're proposing that they would have, the facility would be licensed for 100 kids. And in the second meeting, Fox River did state that their recruiting of employees is becoming more difficult because of the lack of daycare in the area. The state looks at funding the grant more favorably if there's an industry buy-in regarding to it. So our area would look good because of that. And then the grant process, as far as writing the grant, is likely to probably begin. Likely to begin.
For just Osage, or Medicare?
Yep.
No meetings, but a substance abuse, coalition board meeting. I don't know, they're gonna talk about getting some brochure flyers into the county fair. Well, they talked about the attempted suicide numbers in the county here. More than they'd like. So, I don't know, that's pretty much all we talked about, but
I had an economic development meeting, just basically the process of hiring a new director. And I also hopped in on the 2 Osage daycare meetings. That's it.
item B, manure management plan updates.
Happy Ford Incorporated, 2340 410th Street, Osage. Liberty South Finisher Farm, 4401 Rampart Avenue, Stacyville. Liberty West Finisher Farm, 4428 Quail Avenue, Little Cedar. Jenkins South Finisher Farm, 4437 Timber Avenue, Riceville. Liberty East Finisher Farm, 2809 440th Street, Little Cedar. Iowa Select Johnson Tip 6 Nursery Unit 5060 Glass Avenue, Zeninsburg. And Iowa Select Kiss Tip 13 Mean Finish 3005 500th Street, Madison.
Thank you. Item C, public comments. Dave?
Several people in the county are forming a group called Concerned Citizens of Mitchell County. We're gonna have a meeting Wednesday night out of the conservation Mill Owen building out there. And it's gonna be an informative and educational meeting about TIF, what TIF is all about, the successes we've had with TIF. And there will also be some other people who will be, talking about how TIF has helped them, some autonomous boards that you have appointed or people you appointed. And so just want to let everybody know if they want to come find us. If not, it's our first meeting. We think it's going to grow and we'll continue to have more meetings. And the one thing we're trying to do is get information out before we put anything out. We want to really research it, make sure that we're telling 100% truth. So anybody wants to come at 6:30 Wednesday night, they're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have anything? Nothing? What's that? Nothing you can think of. Well, I guess we need a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Jim's made a motion. Second? Yes, I will second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Yeah, very good.